So now that we have the equipment component, for the most part started and the flow kind of set in, how we want it, we need to basically have a way to gather information from these actors. So anim layers that we need to link or unlink, ability info that we need to add or remove. Well, in this case, add because we'll be storing the info here to remove it. And then actually, I think that's about it for now. Oh, and the montages. So the equip and unequip montage. So to do this, we're going to go to our core module and basically just add an interface that's going to be, something like a held actor interface. So let's add a new Unreal class, type interface, and call it held actor interface. Let's go ahead and copy this little export definition there. And we can remove the CPP file because we do not need it at all. So we'll just delete the entire interfaces folder from the private section. Okay, so we have our held actor interface. So we need to know what anim layers to link to. We need to know what ability info we need. And we also need montages. So the unequip, this would be a montage. So let's see, we can either make a kind of like a set. So basically a firearm montage and a player montage. However, as far as I can think, we don't actually need any animations for the equip and unequip for the firearm. But if we end up, needing that, that should be a pretty simple refactor. So we're not going to add those. So instead, we're going to have a U anim montage. And let's make the function something like get equip montage. And it'll return a null pointer by default. Also, we need to make sure these are virtual so they are overridable. Then we're going to have get unequip montage. Again, return a null pointer. Then we're going to skip ability info for now because we're going to end up setting something else. Well, we're just not there yet to have to worry about it. Then we want the unlink anim layers. So we need, well, a T, where is it at? A T subclass of U anim instance, which will be the anim layer to link and unlink. So this will be, let's do, what would be a good name for this? Because, so when I'm referring to anim layers, there's actually two that I am referring to. So let me comment these out and I'm actually going to show you what I'm referring to. Okay, so here in the example project, you can kind of get an idea. And this is again the SKG example. There are two anim layers here. One is the upper body and one is just the procedurals. So they are two different things that kind of work together. So for example, when you are unarmed, let me actually go ahead and disable the auto equip because I have this is my work project. So when we are unequipped, we're using a different anim layer. So you can see we can just basically look up and down, and we are doing so primarily with our neck and head, kind of like you would normally. You're not going to lean up and down with your spine entirely and all that stuff. But once you equip a firearm, such as this M4, you can see we performed a equip animation. And now when we look down, you can see we are utilizing much more of the spine. So there are two parts. The unarmed state, which looks up and down, pretty much just with the head, that is this procedural layer. So specifically, it is this unarmed procedural layer that comes with SKGSF core in that folder. And then once we equip the M4, we switch to this procedurals layer, which does a lot more stuff inside of it. And then with the upper body, this is basically the actual holding the M4 and the equip animation layers. So for example, let me actually go to the M4 layer. So that's in the definition right here. So basically, this is just a anim instance that is a child of the upper body firearm, which is this one right here that I was just showing you. And what it does is, I mean, realistically, it hasn't been modified at all. Sorry, it hasn't been modified at all. We just used the asset override to pretty much tell it which idle animation to use and which equip animation to use. So we're going to have two layers basically that we're trying to link with. So one is when we are armed, one is when we are unarmed. So hopefully that kind of makes sense as to what I'm referring to when I'm pointing out these, anim layers. Now, to begin, we need, first off, the unarmed, or sorry, not the unarmed layer, we need the upper body layer. Now, we don't care about setting, which procedural layer to use for each, held actor, but we do care about just the upper body layer we want to use. So we want a get upper body anim layer, and that'll take care of that one. And as I am thinking about it, I just realized I made a mistake with what I just showed you. So for that, because it automatically performs the equip inside of that anim layer for the upper body, we don't actually need an equip montage. So we can just remove it. We don't have to worry about it. So all we have is a unequipped montage and a upper body anim layer that we need to link basically to and from. So now that we have that, let's go back to our equipment component, and we basically just want to go ahead and cast and grab the interface from the actor to equip. So in the actor to equip, we're going to do I held actor interface. So we need to include it, which always puts it in the wrong spot, at least from where I want. So held actor interface equals cast to I held actor interface from actor to equip. So here we can fetch the get unequip montage. So basically, if we have a valid unequip montage, so anim montage, unequip montage, then we can go ahead and perform it. Otherwise, we want to, again, basically just unequip complete. Because if we don't have a valid montage, we just immediately want to jump to the unequip part, which there might be cases where, at least specifically with this project, where I don't have the resources, or if I extend it to something random, I might not have an unequip animation made, because again, I'm doing this myself. So once we have the unequipped montage, we can go ahead and play it. However, we need a, a mesh to play it on. So if we look at our pawn, where's our pawn? It uses the character class, which has, just the normal get mesh function like so. So what we need to do is we basically just need a way to access it from the owner. So I don't really want to have to go through and, cast to the character class or cast skg pawn or anything like that. Instead, I'm going to use the find components function to basically access what we need for us. So in order to do that, we're going to use find components by class, and I'm going to make it easier for us and just simply create a function that will get it and set it. So what we can do is under our protected section here, let's go ahead and start one of these functions. So skeletal mesh component, and this will be I guess get pawn mesh, something like that. And then likewise, we want a U property, because we want a T object pointer to the U skeletal mesh component, which will be the pawn mesh. So basically, like we've done in the past, yes, let's make it inline again. I want to do this below get lifetime replicated props. So basically, if the pawn mesh is invalid, we want to find it and get it. Well, set it and get it. Otherwise, we just return pawn mesh. So in here, we want to get the owner because we're in a component. We want to find component by tag. And basically, the component, let's let's see, is this a template? Yes, it is. So the type is going to be a U skeletal mesh component. And then the tag, we need to kind of define elsewhere. So something like, pawn mesh, for example, in which case we set pawn mesh to equal, well, this find component. So we want a consistent place to have, this tag stored. Likewise, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to do the same thing for the camera name, the weapon attached socket, all that stuff. So this is a good spot for the core module. So let's go to our core module.h and just create some space here. And we want to have some static variables. So static, let's do f name, and we'll call this one the pawn mesh. And we'll do it the pawn mesh tag. And that'll just be equal to f name pawn mesh. Then we want the same thing. So this will be the camera socket, which will be s underscore camera. And then another one, which will be the, let's do actor attach socket, which will just simply be IK hand gun. So that way we have, more relevant names that we can reuse in other places and change in one spot instead of, typing them and chasing them around. And the way to use it is simply include core module.h. So now we can simply grab the pawn mesh tag. Very simple. Same thing in skg pawn. We need to do that to the camera. So we can actually remove that and include core module.h and replace s underscore camera with camera socket. So we can go ahead and close out of all of that, and we are in a good spot. So we now have access to where we can, grab our pawn mesh. So let's grab our pawn mesh and go ahead and call, what is it? Can't do a montage directly on it. We need to get the anim instance. So get anim instance, montage underscore play, and then it'll tell us what we want to pass in, which is the montage to play. So unequip montage, play rate, length, all that stuff, that can all be the defaults. So we need to access the anim instance again. So I'm just going to actually store it. So anim instance, pawn anim instance. So pawn anim instance, we need to grab the, what is it called? Montage should be some kind of delegate. I don't think it's set in delegate, but it might be. It's been quite a while since I've actually used it. Okay, here it is. So on montage ended. So called when a montage is ended, interrupted, or blank. So I believe we're going to end up using that. So let me just triple check. Okay, so it's actually not this. It is, well, it's related, but it's a little bit different. So basically, we have to kind of tell the anim instance that we want to listen to the on montage ended for a specific montage. So for example, on anim instance, we search for ended. We have a, let's see, am not saying it. Search for montage. Set end delegate. So as you can see, it takes in a F on montage ended and then the actual montage. So we need to make a F on montage ended. So F on montage ended, like so. That'll be param number 1. And then param number 2 is the unequip montage. So now we just need to basically tell it what, what callback do we want. So on montage ended, we can do a create U object. I'm going to pass in this, and the next parameter will be the function. So U equipment component, and then let's do, I guess, what is it? On unequip complete, I believe, because we should be able to just fire it off directly from there, I think. However, we might need to modify the parameters, so let's just see, what all this actually has in it. Okay, so it takes in a montage and a boolean as to whether or not, it was actually interrupted. So pretty much this means we're going to have to do a little bit of a refactor. So if we head over to our on unequip complete, we can actually swap this out to be, what do you call it? It was a uanim montage. So montage, and then bool be interrupted. So let's go to on unequip complete, plug those in, and that should satisfy this here. So let's see, something with a no discard attribute. Okay, so from my understanding, we need to switch this to a bind u object instead. And yeah, that seems to have resolved that. Now we just need to go ahead and correct these. So it takes in a montage, which we don't care about, so null pointer. And then be interrupted, we'll do false for both of these. And that takes care of that. And then we just still need access to the unequipped actor. So what we can do here is basically inside of the on rep. Actually, better yet, let's do unequipped actor. We'll do it in here because in my opinion, that kind of makes the most sense. And if, all this is actually valid, what we can do is set the unequipped actor to equal actor to unequip. We just need to make this variable. So let's go to here's our current held actor. We don't care about replicating this or anything. So we're just going to do a u property, t object pointer of type a actor, and call it unequipped actor. So that'll satisfy that. And we are setting it here so we know which actor we are trying to unequip. And if it is, doesn't implement any of this stuff, we really do not care about it. So at the very end here, in the on unequip complete, we can just set the unequipped actor to equal a null pointer because it has already been unequipped. It is no longer in the process of unequipping, so to speak. So, or I guess this would be better named unequipping. Unequipping. I'm not sure how to spell that. All right, I had to Google it. So, I guess I actually had that right. So, anyways, we have unequipping actor instead of unequipped actor. So that way the name kind of more so represents, what it is. Okay, so we made our way to the unequip actor. We grab the held actor interface. We set which actor we are trying to unequip, and we start performing the montage for it. So the unequip montage. At this point, once it's completed, we will fire the on unequip complete, which at this, we're basically just going to do what the comments say. So at this point, let's see, we've been recording for 18 minutes. We're going to go ahead and stop here. So in the next video, I'm not too worried about this just yet. We're going to focus on the current held actor because this is the initial part. We're going to go ahead and try to get ourselves set up to where we can actually, test this logic. So yeah, that'll be in the next video. So I'll see you then. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description below, where you can also gain early access to this entire series.